Hello, my name is Mark Saunders and this is a video presentation on structuring your critical literature review. It's one of a series of YouTube videos on my YouTube channel, Mark Saunders on Research Methods, and you can see the link to it in the bottom left hand corner of most of the slides. So in overview, this presentation covers the following things. First of all, we start by looking at what your critical review is. Then we follow with a warning not to structure your review like an online retailer structures their web pages. We then focus down on structuring review and we look at focusing on themes. We look at general to specific structures, specific to general structures and chronological structures. And in each of the three different types of structure, we actually have an example taken from a paper I co-authored with colleagues. We'll finish up with references and further reading, and then we'll actually have the references for the examples we use in the video presentation. Your critical review should be a constructively critical analysis that develops a clear argument about what the published literature indicates is known and is not known about your research question. So it's therefore related to one central question, your main research question, and perhaps two or more review questions which say the actual part the literature is going to do in the review. So the warning, don't structure your review like an online retailer's web page. When you look at these, you'll see they group things by product, and we can sort it by price or relevance and perhaps a few other things. And everything is list-like. We can see that in the screen here. They give limited description, but then they say more information is available. And when they do that, we can look at the price, the brand perhaps, the size if it's a clothing online retailer, the condition if it's selling both new and second hand, the material it's made of, the colour, the location where it is, and so on. But what we see, and this is a crucial thing, whether it's an expensive product or an inexpensive product, there's the same detail available for all. And what we're seeing here is description rather than evaluation. So let's have some lessons from this. If your literature review was like an online retailer's web pages, it might group articles by theme, sort the articles by date or author relevance, but it would describe each article with a similar length summary, and we don't want it to do this. It would not, and this is what we would love it to do, structure ideas and findings into a coherent, logical argument by the theme, reflect on the value of findings in each article, and obviously if they were of little value, the article wouldn't be included probably. Reflect on the value of the ideas in each article. And here again, like with the findings, you tend to write more about the ones which are directly relevant and valuable to your research. And then based on this, it would make reasoned judgments about the values of the ideas and findings. So this is really what we're trying to do with our literature review when we're structuring it. So let's have a look at this in relation to themes. As we read the literature, what we do is we read by author. So we have a series of authors and we read their papers and we note their ideas down underneath each author to start off with. But that's not going to be very helpful to structure the literature review. What we should be doing in structuring the literature review is talking about the themes. So we should be comparing and contrasting what each author says about the themes. Obviously, if they don't say anything, we don't include them in the comparing and contrasting about that specific theme. And we look at these and we would build them up over time with the different themes until we had completed our literature review. If we move on, we'll look at some possible structures for critical literature reviews. The most common and widely used structure is general, narrowing down to specific. So you start broadly with the literature in your topic area and then narrow it down to the specific aspect you're looking at and provide more detail at that level. And we'll have an example of this shortly. The other structure is almost like an inverted funnel where we start at a specific focus and then we widen out our literature review, talking about broader themes. So it's general through to specific. And again, we'll have an example of that. And the final structure we're going to look at is what we call a chronological structure, where we take an idea and we look at it how it's been developed over time within the different literatures. And that's the third type of structure. That is not very common at all. The most common is general to specific, then specific to broader themes, and least common the chronological one, often used if we're looking at the theory, development over time, or the history of idea and how it's come into fruition. So here we have an extract from a journal article written by my friend Neva Gala and some other colleagues, and here we have it going from general to specific. So if we have a quick read, we can see generally the article is on the nature of work and employment relationships, and this looks at how it's transformed over years, and then it starts to focus down a bit, and it focuses down on the role of trust relationships within this, and then finally it focuses down on management consultancy firms. So let's see how this actually works. Here we have the broad general themes of the nature of work and employment relationships. We then move down to the role of trust in relationships as we're narrowing it down, and finally we're completely narrow when we get to the part which is on management consultancy firms. So very much a general to specific structure. If we now look at a specific to general structure, we're going to take an article which I wrote with a good colleague of mine, Paul and Max Visser, and we're going to see here how we start off more at the specific and we move to the general. So the specific we're starting off with here is the aim of the article is to undertake a critical review of the ways in which triple loop learning has been conceptualised by organisation and management scholars. So that's the specific. But then we sort of generalise out a bit. We say we explore the original work of Argyrish and Schoen and of the anthropologist and cybernetician Gregory Bateson, the major influences cited by these authors. So we go broader. And then finally, we have three distinct themes coming out from this, three more general themes which look at the different types. So let's see this on the thing. Here we have our specific focus as it was conceptualised by organisation and management scholars. We then widen it to bring in the works of Argyrish and Schoen and Gregory Bateson. And then finally, we have three broader themes which are the different types of triple loop learning or how it's been conceptualised. So a specific to general structure. The final one we're going to look at is a chronological structure. Here we're going to see how things are done in order, and this comes from a broader paper which is not entirely all chronological, but it gives you an idea of how a chronological structure would work. And this was written by myself and a good friend of mine, Adrian Thornhill, some time ago, as you can see by the date, but it's still useful. So let's see how this chronological structure works out. So we start off by saying initially, so that gives us an idea straight away, doesn't it, that it's researchers doing something, and then we have a subsequently, and then at the end we have more recently. So let's actually see these on the slide. Initially, researchers, and then there's references suggested that interactional justice consisted of two distinct types of interpersonal treatment. Subsequently, it was argued that it's the same as procedural justice and it should be considered so. And then after that, more recently, it's suggested that procedural information and interpersonal forms are all empirically distinct. And so what we have here is an early structure of initially moving through in time in terms of when the ideas were developed to more recent ideas. And so that's our final structure of literature reviews, our chronological structure. As always with my YouTube videos, I have a few references and further reading. And here, as we're looking at structuring the review, I'm focusing down on the chapters in these specific books that do that. So Ridley's book, The Literature Review, A Step-by-Step Guide for Students, Chapter 6 is the one to go to. In my own book with Phil and Adrian, Chapter 3 is on literature reviews generally, and you need to find the subsection within it. And finally, Mike Wallace and Alison Ray's book, Critical Reading and Writing for Postgraduates, looks at structuring literature reviews in Chapter 14. The papers on which this is based on are Neva Gala's and my own Reinhard Bachmann and Alan Mishra's paper on identifying trust exchange dynamics and constituents of employee trust within management consulting, and you can actually see the general to specific in the title even of that paper. Then the one where we're looking at the psychological contract, and we're actually seeing the chronological aspect of how that contract had been developed, is a paper with myself and Adrian Thornhill, which appeared some years ago in Employee Relations. And finally, the specific to general structure we see in the paper by myself, Max Visser and Paul Tozy, and that appeared in Management Learning. I hope you found this YouTube video presentation useful, and I'd be really grateful if you'd subscribe to my channel, Mark Saunders on Research Methods, and also told your friends and colleagues about the channel as well. I'm adding new videos to the channel nearly every week, and hopefully they'll be of help to you in your own research.